The TCL QM8 or the Sony X90L. Both of these are great television, but which is the right one for you? On this video, I'm going to show you guys everything you need to know to make the best decision. So let's get started. So first, let's take a look at the statics of the TCL. On the bottom of it, you're going to find this pedestal, which is great, but you have to set center channels on it. And the TV, you can raise up and down. In the center of it, there's a logo. You can press that button and you get this on-screen menu so you can select different options, but you can't control any applications. The bezels are very thin. And if I move the camera here to the back, you can see that it has this nice stealthy look to it. So this TV looks very premium to the look. Now here we have the Sony X90L. Instead of having the base in the center, it has these feet on the left and the right, and you can adjust them to raise them up to accommodate for a sound bar in the center. The Sony logo's on the corner here, and it has a nice finish to it as well, just like the TCL. Now if you press the button in the center here, you get this little pop-up, and you can control the channels, the volume, reset, just like the TCL. The first thing I want to show you guys is both TVs at maximum brightness before I make any adjustments and put it in the factory cinema mode. One thing I could tell is the TCL is much brighter, but the Sony is actually almost as good, and it looks more natural to me in this particular settings. But we'll find out later on which TV is going to be the best. Now, so you guys know how I have this set up, I went into the intelligent picture mode and I turned off everything so the TV will not adjust itself. And I went into the picture, it's in movie mode, and I went down here at the bottom and I did the factory defaults. Now for the Sony, I did the same thing. I turned off all the settings, and here I am resetting the cinema mode. So here's the remote controls. It comes with both TVs. Let's take a quick look at the TCL remote. Well, one thing about this remote controls, has everything that you need. It's very convenient, except for they don't put number pads on these remote controls anymore, but you have some hotkeys at the bottom, Google voice commands, plus you can choose your different profiles whenever you want to add more people to the Google TV operating system. Now take a look at the Sony one. This one is a little more basic. It doesn't have a backlight like the TCL. And I will tell you that you don't have that profile button, but you do have Bravia Core, which is Sony's own movie service. And you can get up to 80 megabits per second to get Blu-ray quality while streaming your content. Now connections is very important, especially for gamers out there. The TCL has two HDMI 2.1s. One of them supports up to 144 Hertz using variable refresh rate. One of them is 120 Hertz, plus it has a separate eARC, so you can hook up two 120 Hertz gaming consoles, plus you have a separate output for your soundbar. The Sony also has two HDMI 2.1s, but I will tell you that they will support up to 120 Hertz. And one of them is shared for your eARC soundbar output. And one of the benefits on the Sony is that it has the ATSC 3.0 TV tuner. So when it's available in your area, you will be able to pick up 4K interaction TV over the air. If you've been following my channel for a while, you'll already know that I'm very truthful with what I see and what I share with you guys. And I would tell you that TCL has done a phenomenal job on the colors of this television. The biggest things that stand out to me is when I look at both TVs, the Sony still appears just slightly a little bit more natural, but the TCL has punchier colors. And you can't ignore the fact that this TV is extremely bright in comparison. But the interesting thing is that the TCL uses mini LED technology, where the Sony uses direct backlights with local dimming zones. And on paper, it doesn't compare to the TCL whatsoever, but it's doing a great job keeping up with it. So if you lower the brightness on the TCL, they're very similar, but again, you're going to see more vivid colors on the TCL as well as that brightness, but you can make some adjustments on the Sony to make it pretty darn close. So I looked at a bunch of footage, and the only thing I could tell is if you look at the Sony in this illustration, the books on the left-hand side are much greener, and to me, the blue on her shirt is much better overall. But if you look at everything else, the TCL's doing a really good job. In my opinion, the viewing angles are pretty equal on both TVs. So let's go over to the Sony and look to the side. And then let's go over here to the TCL. and look from the side. So again, both TVs are fairly equal overall. I don't think one's gonna be better than the other when it comes to viewing angles. So I want to show you guys a blooming test because a lot of people do say things about the Sony. So let's go and crank up the ISO. This is not something you would normally see, but the camera can pick up more than our eyes. So that's on the TCL, and that's how the light is actually coming in through the camera. And there's the Sony. So again, you won't normally see this because I'm doing a high ISO test, but when I put the ISO back to normal, you can see that it goes away on both TVs. But the Sony does have just a slight more blooming in comparison, especially over here. You can see right there. We have a lot more footage to go over, but it might just come down to personal preference. I think both TVs look phenomenal. Do you want something that's more punchier with the colors, or do you want something that looks more natural? Now, if you're a movie fanatic, you're definitely gonna love both TVs. The main reason is that they're both gonna pick up great shadow details. So I was looking at different scenes and I can notice that besides the tone of the picture, both TVs are picking up a lot of details in the backgrounds. Plus both TVs are showing action scenes very well. And in my opinion, the Sony was built more for movies than the TCL because of the Netflix and Bravia calibrations that are built into it. But one thing I'm going to show you that you would notice if you was watching a movie, as I was filming these demos, I want to pause the scene to show you guys how well the Sony is processing images. So as you can see in the background, this building looks a lot clearer on the Sony than it does on the TCL. And this is really showing off the XR processor in the Sony and how it goes to work. Now, watching the HDR content on YouTube TV, both TVs look really good. Again, you're going to notice that the TCL is much brighter, but the Sony is hanging in there. Shadow detail is very important, so I want to pause this scene to show you guys these trees in the background. This is what you really expect when you zoom into the image. You can see that the Sony is picking up so much more detail than the TCL, and normally you wouldn't notice this if you didn't have a comparison video like this. Now let's get into some color tests so we can see the comparisons, and then we'll get into a gaming and wrap it up with a few last things. According to what I can see, the TCL is more uniformed overall across the screen, and my first impression is that the TCL would have better contrast ratio. But if you look at this illustration, you can see that the Sony's picking up so many more levels of black levels than the TCL. I found it to be very surprising. So when it comes to artifacts tests, both of these TVs do really well, especially because they are 120 Hertz, 10-bit panels, so you won't have any problems there. But it's interesting, when I switched over to the motion test at 24 frames per second, in my opinion, the Sony did a much better job than the TCL. Now, when it comes to skin tones, I think both TVs do an excellent job. You can see that the TCL, again, is much brighter, but if you look at the details, I think you're going to be satisfied with either TV. And here's a side-by-side. Again, to me, both TVs look fantastic. But the interesting thing is that they have different tones. Both of these TVs are set up for gaming, so let's take a quick look at the menu systems. Now the TCL does have a gaming bar. You press and hold down this 3 lines right here and it'll pull up the menu. Now one thing I want to point out on the TCL is that whenever you have it in gaming mode, you have all these options here at the bottom. Plus at the very top, you show the frames, HDR, auto low latency, plus this TV does have variable refresh rate. Now it have screenshots. You also can change it from different speeds according to which game you have, and it's going to set up everything for you automatically, which is pretty cool. You also have shadow enhancements. You have an aiming aid, and that puts this circle right here in the center. Plus you can change it to different styles. The TCL also supports HGIG, and this is a standard put in place by gamers to make it look exactly how they intended it to. And you have a few other options down here, like you can change the different design of the aiming bar. You can change the brightness, make it small. You can change it to a dot. So you have a lot of options with the TCL when it comes to gaming. Now in the TCL, you don't have to really make any adjustment. It does everything for you. And you can choose if you want to use HDMI 1.4, 2.0, or automatic. Now there's some things about the Sonys that you might not like, but we'll talk about that next. Now when it comes to the Sony, you press and hold down the menu and you get a pop-up on their TV. Now, as far as the way the Sony's set up, on the bottom here, you can see your resolution, your frames. You also can turn your VRR off and on. You have motion blur reduction, black EQ, and you have the crosshair, and that puts the little dot right here in the center. And you have different types as well. like across, but it's not as advanced as the TCL. Plus, I don't think it supports the HGIG as well. Now, the thing about Sony is that it depends on what you play. You have to go into the inputs and change it. So we go down here to input signal, and let's say I go to HDMI 3. You have your standard format, you have your enhanced, but if you want to play Dolby Vision game, you have to go ahead and select that, but you lose VRR. Or if you go down to VRR, you lose Dolby Vision gaming. So the thing about the Sony is that it's not going to automatically configure itself like the TCL. The last part of that gaming video, I just want to show you guys the shadow details in the trees. So you can pause it and take a look if you want to zoom in and see the differences. But in my opinion, the TCL is doing a much better job when it comes to gaming in every aspect, from the easy to convert itself over to any gaming consoles. It automatically detects variable refresh rate. It automatically detects Dolby Vision, so you don't have to go into the system and make any adjustments whatsoever. Next thing we're going to do is take a listen to the audio systems just really quick. And I will tell you that on the back of the TCL, it does have a built-in subwoofer, so it does have much better bass response. But the Sony has extra speakers on the side, so it will create a better surround sound effect. All right, guys, we're at the end of this video, and I could have went over more information, but keep in mind, I've already filmed both of these TVs separately, so you can go check that out right after this video. But to be honest with you guys, it is a hard decision because Sony, they have so much history. As a kid, I played with their Walkmans and CD players and, you know, Betamax and all that good stuff. And the thing is that Sony is now like becoming a standard in the movie industry. They make the Venice 2 camera that Top Gun was filmed with and a few other movies. They also have a reference monitor, $30,000, that people use to color grade their movies. So the processing, they got it down. I will say though, in today's world, there are some features on their TVs, software related, that they could definitely improve upon, like fully automation when you plug in a gaming console. There's some little tricks to their equipment because they use a thing called Bravia Sync. So if you don't have all Sony equipment, some things just don't sync properly. Now, when it comes to TCL, they did a good job on this TV. I mean, I'm not saying this is better than the Sony overall, but they did a really good job on this TV. And I'm not talking about picture like you think I am. I'm talking about the ease of use. If you have a gaming console or a PC, you plug it into the TV, it configures itself automatically. You don't even have to think about it. Where on the Sony, you have to go into the menu and say, I'm using Dolby Vision or VRR. This one figures itself out. Another thing that TCL did was smart is that they have two HDMI 2.1s and a separate eARC. So I have a PS5, I have an Xbox Series X. I can plug those in, get 120 Hertz. And then I have another output that I can actually run over to my soundbar. So that is something huge. Also, I like the fact that the TCL has a subwoofer on it, which gives this TV pretty good audio system, but I'm not a TV audio fan. I like soundbars and external audio systems. But mini LED, you know, you got full array local dimming, so the technology is completely different. So if I was to choose between these two TVs, this is the thing that comes to mind. You have something that's traditional, natural. This TV is always going to look as best as it can. Bar none, Sony has the best processing. And I showed you guys some still shots where you can see that the motion is fantastic when it comes to action scenes. They just know how to process things. The TCL, you're gonna get that crazy nits rating, extremely bright, great contrast, plenty of local dimming zones. And again, that ease of use. Hope that helps you guys out. I'm Tech Steve. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you guys on the next one. Peace.